All right. Hi. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hold on, I'm thirsty. I just realized how dry my throat was. I've been talking for an hour. All right. Whew. All right. Let's start over. Hi, my name is Lana. Welcome to my new YouTube channel. And on this channel, we review books predominantly, with some other bookish content thrown in every now and then, but mainly book reviews, one video dedicated to a book. This week's book review is Kudos by Rachel Cusk, which is the third installment of the Outline trilogy. And the final installment, obviously, it's a trilogy. Okay. It may be the case, she said, that it is only when it is too late to escape that we see we were free all along. So as I said, this is the final installment of her infamous Outline trilogy, especially on Instagram in particular. Since the Outline trilogy was released, you see it posted everywhere. It's definitely a Bookstagram darling. And I think for good reason. Overall, I have enjoyed the trilogy. Also, let's be frank, it's an Instagrammable looking collection, right? I mean, it's pretty cool looking. I've always liked the way that these Picador designed the books, all of her books, even outside the trilogy, with the white bold and the cool whatever, kind of cryptic or abstract photo image or cover art. So in Kudos, our narrator, who remains widely unnamed, though we do get her name, but her name is rarely mentioned. And in an Outline, you don't get her name until the very end of the book. So there are not going to be any spoilers in this book review. It's hard to spoil this because they're not, the books aren't plot heavy. But the narrator goes to Europe to promote her new book, and once again has various conversations with the people that she meets throughout this narrative, which is, again, the structure of the other two books. It's a series of conversations. These conversations that she's having with other people, in some cases that she's overhearing, are what reveal what has the current state of the narrator's life. And you know that based on what she's choosing to hone in on. And I said this in Outline and about Transit, it's almost how we have selective bias when it comes to conversation. You're going to pick up on what interests you and what's relevant for you, and that is basically telling the tale of your current state. These conversations in this book definitely overlap with the others, but we get conversations about marriage and writing, the publishing industry, parenthood, and the complexities of moving from the past and into the future. This will not be a long review. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Out of all three, this was my least favorite. And so when I was reading it, I didn't particularly feel excited about this book. I kind of lost steam halfway through. You might be able to tell that these are the themes, these are the quotes that I use to back up these themes, and we're going to call it a day. I just don't feel anything about most of this book. It's not my favorite out of the three. So one of the reoccurring themes in all of these books is how people are often acting as if they're on a stage, and they're portraying these fabricated realities based on how they want to be perceived, and they're doing it all for the sake of appearances, to look good for other people. Actors secretly share the knowledge that they're acting, which, if they admitted it, would ruin the scene. Actors need an audience. And again, we have the narrator focusing on married couples who are, from the outside looking in, they look great. But then you see them in divorce and you're like, well, what happened? It's because they were so convincing initially, and then that facade had to crack. The presence of the large panes of glass between one group of delegates and another, each able to see but not hear the other, seemed to signify something about the artificiality of the situation. Again, this observation, you see Cusk do this a lot in the trilogy, using glass between people as that glass is a separation, you're observing them behave, but you have to acknowledge that these people are acting. I think there's a lot in common with To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. My stomach just grumbled if you heard that. There's a lot. You could actually, backtrack. A good companion read for a Cusk outline trilogy is actually Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. There's a lot of that in To the Lighthouse of observing this family through glass and how there is something artificial going on, or perceptions are skewed. There are barriers put up between you and these actors. There's also a lot of discussion in this book in particular, more so than the others. I think this is a theme that's unique to this particular one, or goes into way more depth than in the other two, is this discussion on the past and how you have to balance nostalgia with moving forward. There are times when nostalgia is a good thing. It's good to kind of look back and reflect and even have some warm feelings about the past, but not to the point where it's prohibiting you from moving into the future. The narrator in previous installments of this trilogy has experienced major changes in her life, predominantly with the separation of her and her husband. And so she has children from this previous marriage. And so she has also since moved on into another relationship. But the past is there. How do you reconcile it, but not let it hinder you? And so nostalgia is talked about a lot. And so we have other conversations with characters, talk about the nostalgia of growing up, their parents, and all of this. There was, he added, a generalized yearning for the ideal of literature as for the lost world of childhood, whose authority in reality tended to seem so much greater than that of the present moment. Again, I think we can also see how we tend to idealize the past and look back with nostalgia at the past as being something greater, but was it really? We get that a lot, the romanticization of the past. Despite our nostalgia for the past and for the history, we would quickly find ourselves unable to live there for reasons of discomfort, since the defining motivation of the modern era, he said, whether consciously or not, is the pursuit of freedom from structures or hardships of any kind. What is history other than memory without pain? What was surprising was how often these people claimed to be relieved not to live in that way any longer. Even as they expressed their nostalgia for it, sometimes he almost thought he felt the loss of the old world more keenly than they did themselves. That's an interesting quote, because I think we often look back and say, how could you not look at that and realize how great your life was at the time? But for people who were maybe living during that era, maybe there's just they know the reality of it. They know how gritty it was, and it wasn't just, this romanticized or artistic black and white or sepia toned image photo. They know that what was actually happening, the grit. This just occurred to me in Dragonfly and Amber, in the Outlander series, talks about that a lot. When Claire time travels, she realized that the past was just as hard as the present that she came from, the 1940s that she came from. She was coming from World War II, just having served as a nurse in World War II, goes back to 18th century Scotland and realizes life is still hard in a different way, but when we look at history, we tend to romanticize it. And so, again, you have Cusk having this conversation, puns intended, here. Lastly, in Kudos, Cusk explores the concept of freedom. The amount of times that the word free or freedom pops up in this book is infinite. I marked it quite a bit. And it's how is it? What is it? What is freedom and how is it obtained? If freedom even is obtainable. And if so, what are the consequences? And I'm trying to think about why Cusk has this as such a focus. We see freedom used a lot with children, parents and children, in marriage. Free, is this narrator perhaps free because she is now freed from this other relationship, this past marriage that, she was in the process of divorcing in the book outline, but then she ends up married again. So what is freedom? Can you have a true freedom when your life is connected to so many other lives? Maybe that's one thing that she's hinting at. Can you have freedom as an author when you have people reviewing your work, you have people reading it and interpreting? Are they missing the point? People are projecting you onto that work. So yeah, thoughts below if you've read this. Please feel free to chime in. One person's freedom became the next person's yoke. I found the idea peculiarly, there it is, repugnant, I said, because it hinted at something beyond mere neglect or selfishness, a special kind of egotism that sought to eliminate the risk of creativity by enslaving others to its point of view. Yeah, there it is. I answered my question. Yeah, okay. I think I was kind of I was in the ballpark there. The one thing you can say about people for sure, Ryan said, is that they'll be free, that they'll only free themselves if freedom is in their own interest. I'm actually going to wrap it up there. Again, I said this was going to be a relatively short review. I found the topics and themes, there are others, of course, like I said, parenthood, marriage, book writing, book publishing, etc., to be interesting, as I did with Outline and Transit. Cusk even briefly mentions the book reviewing space. There is a book critic that makes an appearance in this novel who is writing his own novel and muses on, man, if I have been critical of other people's works, is it almost hypocritical for me to write a novel, thus exposing myself to the type of criticism that I have judged others with? You know what I mean? Like, I'm judging others people's work. Now I have the audacity to publish in this space after I have been rather brutal. That is a question I have often asked myself. Like, if I were to hypothetically ever publish something, the audacity, right? The audacity. And so Cusk also makes a brief comment about the online reviewing space and how it has changed the book space. And so I thought that was interesting. Again, this is my least favorite of the three, however. I can't put my finger on it. Something in the narrative for me lost steam about the halfway point. And at that point, and moving on towards the end of the novel, I just never felt excited to pick the book back up. I felt like I was like, okay, I get what Cusk was doing with this trilogy and I'm over it. I actually feel that perhaps Kudos could have been half the size, almost the length of a novella. And it's already not even a long book. It's 232 pages. I felt like it could have been maybe 3/4 of the size, if not half the size. I was kind of over it. I was like, I get it. I'm done by that point. I know somebody else who said that this was their least favorite. Something just was missing. Please let me know if you thought that way or if this perhaps was your favorite out of the three. I think Outline out of all three was my favorite. Yeah, hence the shorter review for this one. I just never felt motivated to pick this book up past the halfway point. I mean, I did. Obviously, I finished it, but I just wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm excited to sit down and read another 20, 25 pages of this book. But I still really enjoyed Cusk's writing. I like her writing. Again, it is deceptively simple. You read it, there are sentences that seem simple, and then I go back and was like, wait a minute, she did something there, and I have to go back and reread it. She throws a lot of hints. You just have to catch them. She's very introspective. Rachel Cusk has a way of saying the simplest things, and you're like, saying things in the simplest way. There's like, man, finally somebody said the thing in a way that I've always had a hard time articulating. It's just, she knows how to She knows how to hit the nail on the head. There it is. Rachel Cusk knows how to hit the nail on the head. And I will say, the Outline trilogy was my introduction into Cusk, and even though this particular book wasn't my favorite out of the three, it was still well written. I appreciate it for what it is, and it has made me excited to read her other work. I have a second place down here. That'll be my next. I'm getting hungry. I'm starting to get tongue-tied. Second place will be my next Cusk. So, have you read the Outline trilogy in its entirety? Did you get on with it? Did you not get on with it? What was your favorite and least favorite out of the three? And outside of the Outline trilogy, what other Cusks have you read and enjoyed or didn't enjoy? Please feel free to let me know down below. Also, please feel free to like, subscribe, and feel free to follow me on Instagram, where I get up to more book shenanigans. Link down below so you can click and just go straight to it. That is where I post all of my reviews first, where I post my TBRs, reading wrap-ups for the month, and I also post funny things in the story. At least I think it's funny. Things that make me laugh on the internet that just help to lift your mood if you're, just need a good laugh. I believe in laughing every day. Good medicine. I'm going to wrap it up now. It is 1:00 p.m. as of the day that I'm recording this. It is time for lunch. I am starving. My stomach is actually grumbling, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.